Hi everyone, welcome back to day 29 of Ease. This is a whole exercise in learning how your thinking affects you, but mostly it's all about how to cultivate independent thinking so that you are really able to think for yourself and assess what's going on in and around you and understand what is influencing you at all times. There are 1,000 things influencing us, from the color of the room we're in to some fight that we had 2 days ago that's still lingering. And at the end of the day, you don't want to be subject to all of these influences that are shaping how you express yourself, how you talk to your friends and family, and how you show up in the world. If we are allowing the outside world to dictate who and what we are and what we do, say, feel, and project into our surroundings, then we're not really living our own life. We're living someone else's life, and actually they are kind of living through us. So going through all of the days leading up to this, which is day 1 through day 28, we're addressing everything from health, wealth, love, and happiness, the way we view our time, the way we are allowing energies to affect us, literally on an electromagnetic level, and what it is that we are going to do with all of that insight and information. So today's video is short and sweet, and it's an invitation for you to sit down and journal about the things that influence you most. Just do a brain dump. What is it that is influencing me most right now? And just see what comes out. See what your subconscious has to say. You can write, Shadow, please tell me what's influencing me most right now and how I can build my own influence and autonomy over myself. Every time we hop onto social media, every time we are going out into the world, we are almost losing that barrier of autonomy and our ability to really move from a place of being centered in who and what we are. And meditation is one of the best ways to come back into your energy and to acknowledge what it is that you're feeling. I really want you to do this throughout the day. 5 times a day is ideal. And this will start when you first wake up, then when you have your little breakfast, when you're exercising, when you're taking your midday break, when you're working. Set some alarms on your phone where they pop up and it serves as a check-in so that you can check in with yourself about what it is that you most need right now or what really is making you feel a certain way. Because once you start to identify what those triggers are, and these are trigger points because a thought triggers an emotion. That emotion triggers a response. And when we start to address the triggers that we are feeling and facing and seeing, then we will start to notice that once we tackle those triggers, we are so much more centered, we are more thoughtful, and we are just more self-aware. And when you are more self-aware, then you can understand your own perspective on a much deeper level, and you can understand the perspectives of anyone else you come into contact with just a little bit more, because you are able to understand all of the influences that influence them as well. So, that being said, meditation is always key. It's great, and doing it essentially as like a check-in for at least 30 seconds. What is really tugging at me? What do I feel like is maybe a trigger? Identifying what a trigger even feels like is a great place to start. And then from there, taking some time every single day to journal. What is going on, shadow self, with me? And why am I feeling triggered by XYZ and brain dump? Just don't judge, let it come out. Because when we force ourselves to keep things stuck inside and unprocessed, then we're going back to that grief day of unhealed grief. And that's what a lot of these triggers are. And we might have triggers where it's unhealed grief in areas of our lives where we didn't even think that it was a problem. For an example, friendships are a great thing that can create triggers. Let's say you lose a friend, or you and a friend grow apart, or you have a fight with a friend, and then you're trying to move forward in your life. You might be still holding on to something that happened 10 or 15 years ago that you never even really realized was a deep trigger until you started noticing throughout the day and then journaling about it without judgment. Now, this is a step that you don't have to do with those journal pages, but sometimes I find it to be therapeutic. I like to put them in a fireplace, and I like to burn them in a safe way where they have a place to burn and it's covered. It's not going to go flying at you, and you just burn it and you let it go, and you essentially envision that energy just rising like a phoenix and returning to you healed and whole. So that is your exercise for today, day 29. And independent thought is critical for surviving the next generation, really, because we're living in a world where we're tugged by social media, and it's influencing us and it's hypnotizing us, and it can be hard to opt out. And it can be used for good, but you have to be the one to decide, is this what I want to see? Is this what I want my algorithm to show me? And really work with it and understand that it is a tool, but you are not a victim if you understand the ways in which the tool works. And because it operates on such an intense level where your algorithms will talk to the phones next to you and the cell towers, and it will just be sharing information left and right, then it really does think what you are going to think before you think it and then show it to you. So that's why it's really important to be in control of where you are, because in this digital world, we can sometimes get caught up into a vortex without realizing it. Our phones are helping us out in getting into that vortex, but how do we ever get out? We have to disconnect what we're seeing and what we're feeling, what's popping up as triggers, from who we really are as human beings on this earth in physical reality. And people want to talk so much about Web 3.0 and the metaverse and all of that, and I know they are very different things, but the mentality around it is that development in these areas is just exponentially wonderful. And the reality is, if we are going to develop so fast and be so entranced by our phones, by our televisions, and by everything around us, screens of all types, where it's literally wiring our psychology and our behavior, we have to understand how to use these in our everyday lives so that they actually help us rather than harm us. And when I say harm us, I mean lead us into thought patterns we otherwise would not have thought. Because I mean, that's essentially what advertising is, and these days you can't hop on anywhere without getting a little hint of advertising. And that hasn't always been true in the world, but in the modern world, in the last 100, 200 years, it really has been. And I really recommend that you look into consumerism as a concept in terms of marketing and advertising and linking it to behaviors, because when you really get into it, some people say that modern advertising started in the 1800s with the popularization of Christmas gifts from